You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Chris in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, TV shows, games, books, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 663, where tonight Chris and I are going to be talking about Grogu and the Force. So as a series of episodes following the release of The Mandalorian Grogu, we're diving into some deeper topics, character spotlights, discussions, that kind of thing. And so tonight, we're going to be looking at the Force and how Grogu controls it, uses it, maybe past stuff, and then look at his use during the movie, and maybe talk about potentially what could be coming next down the road. So with me, of course, is Chris, who's over to my left. Chris, how are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a busy weekend. I got to see Masters of the Universe, which I thought was actually pretty funny and a good time. So if you get a chance to go see that, and I'm still waiting on seeing my fourth now showing of The Mandalorian Grogu, which I plan to do with the director audio thing.
Right.
I haven't really looked into that much. I signed up for it, and I thought they were supposed to notify me. I haven't seen anything yet, but maybe I got that wrong.
Yeah, I want to take advantage of that too. So I have to sign up so that I can take advantage of that, so that we could actually watch, like, when you watch it at home and the producer director commentary on a DVD or Blu-ray. It's essentially what this is, but you're at the theater watching the movie live.
Yeah. And I think you have to use your phone. You have to use the app or something too.
You have to use the app.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to go out there and look that up, please do so, especially if you're interested in the commentary and what Favreau has to say about the production of the movie. It should be a good time, so I'm looking forward to seeing that and doing that in the theater.
But I second what you said about Masters of the Universe. I saw it last week myself, and I thought it was fun, and I loved it. So, I mean, I grew up with the thing, so they really... There wasn't a lot they had to do to make me happy, but they did everything they needed to do to make me happy. So I thought it was fun. I loved it.
A lot of Easter eggs in there too, if you watch the show, for sure. So
right.
But awesome. Well, hey, before we get started into our main topic, how about some thank yous to some very special people?
Sure. We would love to thank our Patreon members, our now part of the tribe members, Krista Martellini, Will I Am, my girl Paisley, I've Got a Brad Feeling, Rita Reborn, Jacob H, Josh C, Uncle Leon, Sharkman Dan, Alejandro, Jackson Abbott, Daz Davies, Risk Bayless, Danny P, Mike Borda, Dante, aka Utini, and Kat, aka Vader's Girl. And then for our Delusions of Grandeur members is my guy. Now this is Rod Racing, Rob Gumstead, Steve C, and Vanessa S. Thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do this show without you. Coming up, we're going to have a show that we originally planned to do last Tuesday, but due to technical difficulties, my fault, we're rescheduling it to this Tuesday, and it's going to be the review and breakdown of the Shadow of Maul issue number 3 of the prequel comic book series to Maul Shadow Lord. We're going to be halfway through we are halfway through the run right now, and we're gonna break down that comic in full this coming Tuesday, so look for that. And then next Sunday, June 14th, we're gonna have a character spotlight again for the Mandalorian and Grogu. We're gonna have a character spotlight on everyone's favorite jacked Hutt, Rada the Hutt. So look out for this episode coming next Sunday, June 14th.
I can already hear the Rod of the Hutt music playing. That's going to be, there's been a lot of discussion and continues to be a lot of discussion around Rod of the Hutt, all positive, right? But I thought it'd be fun to just put a spotlight on it, and we can talk about Stinky and, maybe the origins there, and then talk about what we saw in the movie and potentially where this is going to go. So we've had a question about this, but we'll just expand upon it and blow it up a little bit more. So can't wait to talk about Rod of the Hutt. That'd be a lot of fun. And if you're not a Patreon member, no obligation, but if you feel, inclined to help support the show, you can head out to patreon.com/CantinaCast or cantinacast.com/Patreon. Either way, we'll take you there. We have, the entry starts at $2, goes all the way up to $20. And depending on what you pick, you get all kinds of benefits and that sort of thing. Plus we have so many shows in the back catalog. I mean, there are a ton of shows. It goes back 7-8 years. There's no way you'll probably get through them all, but a lot of that is it's exclusive to Patreon members. Some of that is really, deep thought and analysis and that kind of stuff more than the public shows. So, if you do, thank you for your support. And of course, to all of our Patreon members, thank you guys so much for your support. We couldn't do the show, like Chris said, without you all. Okay, so I think with that, let's see, we've got the programming notes. Why don't we do this? Why don't we jump into our main topic and kind of break open the seal? I thought maybe we could start with, Grogu as a species, right? Mm-hmm. So Grogu, when he first came out on The Mandalorian, it surprised everybody, especially the way it ended and that big reveal of having another Yoda species suddenly in the universe again, or in the galaxy. And I think what maybe one of the first questions that comes to mind for me is, and I don't know if there's a right answer to this. I don't think there is, quite honestly, and it may not ever be discussed, or we may never find out the truth of this, but it seems to be, at least there's a pattern that with this species, they seem to be force sensitive or more force inclined, or they've got some kind of syncope that's going on with the force. They're like naturals, if you will. And this isn't the first time we've had this. Like, if you think back to Legends, like the was it the Yoselmari creatures from the Heir to the Empire series, and how they were kind of anti-force, they could do that. There's other creatures that I think we've already had in the past where they have been more in tune with the force, more force sensitive, more likely to be force sensitive. But I think it's safe to say that this species, at least, and we only have 3 of them, right? So it's a small number, and all 3 of them are very powerful. All 3 of them are force sensitive. 2 of them became Jedi. 3 potentially could become Jedi, or in some way or some fashion. So I think it's safe to say that's the case. But I don't know. I guess, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a species specific thing, or do you think we just happen to have 3 of that race and there aren't any more, and it's just, I don't know, coincidence or happy circumstance that all 3 of them are force sensitive?
Well, Ben Kenobi says, there's no such thing as luck. I think that, I think that particular species does have a connection to the force. I mean, because look, like you mentioned, we've only seen 3, Yoda, Yaddle, and Grogu.
Right.
And they're batting 1,000 right now for the entire series. All of them are extremely force sensitive. So I do believe that there is some connection that they have to the force, but it goes back to the mysteriousness of their species and why we really don't have any information about them other than what they look like. Really, we don't know where they come from, we don't know what their name is, we don't know any type of family history or anything. All 3 of those characters have mysterious backgrounds, and I think that the aspect that all of them are strong with the force are part of that mysterious background. So, I absolutely think that, yes, that particular species, whatever they are, they're just in tune with the force, unlike any other species in the Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah, that seems to definitely be the case. In fact, I remember when I was watching, what was it? It was in I guess it was season 1 when we got Keller and Beck. And there was that episode where Ahsoka was, or when was it Ahsoka? No, it was Luke. When Luke was with him, Luke was he said something like, "Do you want to remember where you came from?" And I remember I got really excited in that moment, because I thought, holy bananas, they're going to show us like him on his home planet with his mom and his dad. We're going to see flashbacks of, the species thriving, that kind of thing. And then the flashbacks really only kind of go back to, Order 66. And so we don't have any historical evidence of where he originated from. How do you feel about the theories of like him being I don't know, some kind of, I don't want to say, necessarily like a genetic creation of Yoda or Yaddle's DNA? I mean, maybe they're just eggs, or maybe they reproduce asexually or something. We don't know, but I guess, do you think there's any chance, and how would you feel if it was that he was related in some way to either Yoda or Yaddle? You think that's bridge too far?
No, I don't think it's as far as them being parents to Grogu.
Yeah,
either one of them.
Yeah, parents seems weird.
Yeah, that seems weird. Now, could they be related? That's a different story. I know there's been a theory since episode 1 back in 1999 that all of that particular species, they're all related in some form or fashion. So I would probably go down that route as far as like how they happen and how they gain life and whatnot. I don't know. It could be an egg. It could be something. They could just genetically grow them like they do the clones. I don't know.
Maybe it's like Gremlins, where if you get water on them, it just sprouts additional ones.
Hey, look, maybe they are related to Mogwai. They're very similar, and when they get you feed them after midnight, they do turn green.
They turn green. Yeah.
So, no, I'm not sure. But I do think that there is some relation. I don't think it's a parental one. I think it's more of not even a brother sister type thing. Maybe more of a cousin ish type deal. I don't know. But see, that's why they keep their background a mystery, because we have these conversations, and we have amongst fans, we talk about these theories that we have for their species, and we could be completely wrong, or they may not even have an idea. They meaning Lucasfilm and the story group. But I do think that eventually, I think as the years go by, we're going to get maybe a explanation or two for some various points of their species, and I do think that they're related in some way.
Yeah, I don't want to stray too far from, because I mean the main topic's the Force, and don't worry, we're going to get more into that here in a second. But the whole idea about whether or not we will ever know like their background history, the race, where they came from, the name of the species. I think we talked about this on the last episode, maybe. It was one of the questions. And I just don't personally think I'll ever, not in my lifetime, I don't think I'll ever see that. And I don't know that I want to. I don't know that I need to. And that's coming from somebody that has major FOMO when it comes to Star Wars. Like, I have to know everything. That's why I play the games and read the comics and read the books and watch the movies and the shows. Like, if there's anything that's out there that's Star Wars, I'm not part of it. I feel like, I'm going to be left out. But yet with something like this, it does feel so sacred to me that I don't want to know. And I'm okay not knowing. That said, kind of like what's being put in the comments right now. I mean, One Up versus CPU says, look, there's only two suspects, right, between Yoda and Yaddle. So, maybe, and I think it would be weird if that was like a thing where it was parents. And now people have talked about that, for a while now. Ever since Grogu was revealed to us, there's been all kinds of theories about where he came from. This being one of the like prominent ones, at least at the time, was he the love child, as Alex said, of them too at some point. I don't think that's going to turn out to be the case. It seems weird that there are only 3 in the entire galaxy, and for the longest time, there were only 2 that we were aware of.
Right.
Maybe I don't know. There's some kind of hidden planet somewhere. Maybe they're from a totally different galaxy, right? And they're here as transplants from another galaxy. And that's maybe they have being in tune with the Force is just something that comes natural to that race, and as well as many other races, because you're in a totally different galaxy or something. I don't know. There's probably all kinds of crazy theories out there, but I do think it's safe to say. I think if you want to get down to the George Lucas of it all, and you talk about midichlorian counts, that's where I'm not really sure like where he's at. We talk, what was it, 20? Was it 20,000 that Anakin had or something like that? He's like, it's 20,000, and he's like, not even Master Yoda has that many.
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't remember the exact number, but I do remember that not even Master Yoda has a midichlorian count that high.
Yeah. So, okay. So pause that, because I do want to talk about midichlorians 1 second too. But the other thing that's really weird here is that Grogu was born the same year as Anakin, and that when that came out, there were all kinds of theories about, because there was the theories of Anakin being created, right, without a father by the Force as a result of, I guess, in defense or in direct response to Palpatine rising to power. And so that was the Force kind of balancing things out from that perspective and saying, look, I need to offset this. And eventually it will offset it, because he is the chosen one kind of thing, and fulfill the prophecy, right? There were other theories that at the time when Anakin was born, so was Grogu. And Grogu was another kind of manifestation of the Force, and that he didn't have necessarily a father and a mother or any kind of, parental figure. He just was born because of, maybe an egg just popped up or something. The Force willed it that way. But I do find it's weird, or maybe too coincidental, both Anakin and Grogu share the same birth year. But really what I was going with all this was kind of the midichlorian count, and what maybe, we don't know midichlorian counts for really anyone besides Yoda officially in canon anyways. And if he does have a 20,000, that seems like that's crazy off the limits. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe 15 seems to be like on the high end. Those are your Kenobis and your Yodas. Maybe 18's like Yodas. You got your Master Windows. All the great masters and the really powerful Jedi are probably in that range. it's really hard to determine like what Grogu's at. Like, what could his midichlorian count be? Because we just don't know. It feels like he's got unlimited potential in terms of
Mhm.
what he can do, especially since he's so young. He's demonstrated some really powerful abilities at such a very, very young age. Stuff that I would think somebody like an Anakin Skywalker or maybe a Master Yoda would probably be doing as well. But safe to say that he does have a super high midichlorian count, even though we may not necessarily be able to, put a number on that.
No, yeah, I would agree with you. I think again, it goes back to that particular species being predisposed to the Force. I think he, like Anakin, and I'm not saying that now we have to look at the prophecy differently because of Grogu. I'm thinking that Anakin was a specific action by the Force. Okay, so
Right.
he's an anomaly, but compared to everyone else, I think that he, because of his species, does have a higher midichlorian count initially, and that is what helps him be so powerful in the Force. Because again, he's essentially, yeah, he's 50 years old when we first see him, but he's essentially a toddler. And
Right.
for him to be able to levitate a big elephant thing, the Mudhorn,
Hmm.
um, and with little training, because we don't know how long he had been in training at the temple before Order 66. That shows you have that power. You know what I'm saying? He has that ability to connect with the Force, to utilize it now. When we first saw him use it, it would knock him out immediately. He would become very tired and just fall right asleep.
Yeah.
That just shows that maybe his body is not able to process all of that Force power or all the midichlorians that are working through him, so he has to take a nap. But I do believe that he does have a high midichlorian count, but it's because of his race. It's because of not his race, but his species.
Yeah.
It's because of that they're predisposed. That's really the hill I'm gonna die on. The hill I'm gonna stand on is that Yaddle, Yoda, and Grogu, their species just they're already in tune with the Force more than any other species in the Star Wars
Yeah.
galaxy.
It comes naturally,
Yeah.
and that allows them to kind of have this, not necessarily unlimited potential, but a high level of potential to do some really amazing things.
Right.
Well,
And but I want to say this, and this is true not just in the Star Wars galaxy, but in reality and all walks of life. Talent without experience really doesn't pan out. So that's why where we're going, what we're going to talk about here, is crucial for him to grow in his Force powers.
yes. No, and that's they put a big stamp on that during Rebels when Kanan was talking about, training Ezra, and then he was talking about training Sabine, and then later on they revisited that during Ahsoka season 1, right? Talking about how
Mhm.
she has potential, but it's not going to go where everybody has, according to Lucas, everybody has the Force in
Mhm.
them, right? We have a whole show on this, by the way, to plug Patreon. We did a whole show on this several years ago, probably about 4 years ago now, during Ahsoka. But the fact that Sabine was now able to use the Force really made a lot of people mad. But when you go back and look at all the chronological evidence that was put out there by both Lucas and Dave Filoni, it makes sense. Like, it makes
Mhm.
absolute sense that she potentially could get there. But you're right. There's like three things that have to happen. One of which is training. You got to have
Training,
training in
right.
order to kind of nurture that and develop it. And so we saw that he had some of that at the very beginning before Order 66 and before he went into hiding with Keller and Beck. He's had a little bit of training with Luke that we'll talk about here in just a second, maybe talk about what were some of the outcomes of that, some of the things that changed for him as well. But yeah, you're right. Like, even though you could have a high midichlorian count and you could have really great potential, unless you've got somebody there to train you, it feels like there is a plateau. I think that they've
Right.
established that there's only there's a limit, there's a ceiling that exists until you can get past it.
Right. And one of the things maybe we'll talk about now or maybe later on in the show, and this has always been a point of discussion with Star Wars fan, is how long are these subjects that have to go through training to get to the next step of their journey? How long were they actually in training? Like, I know back in the day, the big question is how long was Luke on Dagobah training with Yoda?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then now it's like, okay, well, how long has Grogu been with Luke since the events of the end of Mandalorian season 2? How long has he been with Luke, and how much training has he received with Luke? I know that's been a question that's been floating around out there. We really don't have an answer because they really haven't given us any aspect of time between those seasons. So
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know if we could put something together to determine how long, because that will make an impact on not only what we've seen him do so far, but the potential he has to do more with the Force in the future, in future shows, movies, or whatever.
Yeah. And my take on it is like some of it is absolutely relevant. Like time is relevant. I get it.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of it depends on who you're with as part of your training and how much force potential do you have, right? If you took somebody who really was, let's say you paired up someone who was just didn't have a high midichlorian count, aka didn't have a lot of potential, and you paired them up with Yoda, they're going to get some pretty good training, and no doubt about it. But I think you're still going to hit some kind of limit, right? And it didn't matter if you had Yoda training with you for 6 months versus 5 years. I don't know that he's going to be able to squeeze any more out of you because you're just going to hit some kind of a limit based on your midichlorian count. At least that's the way it was explained to us. Okay. So I think if it for Luke Skywalker training with Yoda on Dagobah, you've got somebody who's of the Skywalker bloodline. You've got arguably the greatest master that's been known to exist, and from what we remember or know, training there on a very force sensitive planet with all the life. I mean, the conditions were ripe to accelerate Luke's training and get him to where he needed to be to go fight Vader in just a short amount of time. I think going back now, I've heard everything from like 6 months to like 9 months is how long he trained, just based on the timing there. And that could have been enough. It probably could have been enough given those circumstances. That probably did get him prepared for that. If you had somebody like Grogu training with Luke Skywalker, let's just say they trained, 6 months to same thing, 6 months or about a year. I think there were a lot of barriers there, quite honestly. I mean, Grogu can't speak. I know they were kind of talking to each other through the Force, and he could feel and sense what Grogu was doing. But I do feel like there were probably some limitations there and potentially how much he was able to squeeze out of him or get out of him. I think Luke's training, well, we'll get into the second, but I think Luke's training was more about getting him to it was kind of very fundamental, like basics of like, okay, here's how to control things, dude, because you're using the Force, you're passing out every single time. You can't even dodge these things, right? That, when he went to the training, it was all about trying to making sure that he could dodge and get around and jump around, which allowed him to defend himself. But then it also allowed the puppeteers to just say, okay, we don't necessarily show him walking anywhere now. We can just show him jumping everywhere because that's, he's learned that from Luke, right? That was kind of the emphasis on some of that. So, anyways, I want to just quickly in the question Paisley threw out here. She says, were Grogu and Yoda at the temple at the same time? This is a question that came up during that episode when it was aired, and a lot of people were talking about it. And I think it's safe to say that they were. How and why how Yoda would know the species was there and didn't ever say anything about it, or wasn't there to protect it, or didn't think about it, or didn't play a prominent role. A lot of that was because, of course, it was written after the movies came out, right? But then it is okay, put that aside, right? Now we need, it's there, it exists, you got to confront it, you got to deal with it. And so I think the question is, why wouldn't he have said anything? I've heard theories about Yoda didn't know, like he was being held in some secret, like it's like Area 51, right? They've got not even the president knows, that we've got aliens hidden away somewhere in a bunker. And maybe this is one of those things. But I don't necessarily subscribe to any of that. I just think that Yoda probably did know and felt like there was a lot of potential there. But I mean, he was in the temple, and that was for him probably the safest place to be. There was so much going on during Order 66 that I don't think Grogu was the first thing on Yoda's mind in terms of who do I go and save and all that,
Right. Well, remember, Yoda wasn't even there. Yoda was on Kashyyyk.
Yeah. He wasn't. Yeah, exactly. When the temple, when the attack happened.
So he wasn't even there. So there was nothing that he could have done to try to help him out. I do believe that that they were there at the same time. There couldn't have been a way that he couldn't have been there. Now maybe he wasn't. If we go back to like episode 2, where Anakin was 19 years old, and if we go with the theory or with what's been discussed about having Grogu born the same year as Anakin, he would have been 19 years old, which is probably 6 months in a standard human. Just my rough guess. There's no math or anything behind that. I'm just guessing.
Yes, he's an infant.
He was an infant. So, he probably wasn't even being like really seriously trained at that point. And so you wouldn't have seen him out there with the other younglings training with Yoda, is what I'm trying to get at. So maybe they were just, making sure that he was safe. And then as the years progressed, keep in mind it was only 3 to 4 years from the end of episode 2 to the start of episode 3. So that's still 22 years old. He would have still been an infant. I don't think his training was probably very, very limited. Again, I do believe
that's assuming that he was actually there at the temple at 6 months, right? We don't
Correct,
know when he
right.
arrived. He could have arrived
exactly.
at 15 years old,
Exactly. We don't know. I'm going on the assumption that, like Ahsoka, what we saw in Ahsoka in Tales of the Jedi, they found him as a newborn and realized that he was, powerful in the Force. His species would have given that away, and then so they brought him into the temple, but knowing that his species ages very slow and lives very long, maybe they just kept him and protected him until he was ready to take on full-blown Padawan training. That's my theory anyway.
Yeah, I think that's what One Up versus CPU. Yoda probably kidnapped him. No, that's not true, Alex. One Up versus CPU said, Grogu was actually in the daycare section of the temple. That's kind of what we're saying. Yep. I don't know where that looks like, but probably the case. He says, I couldn't see Grogu training with the younglings in those classes. He's just a baby. Yeah, I don't think he was. I mean, he did get training, though. We know he got training.
We know he got training, exactly.
Luke says so. No, Ahsoka? Who was it that confirmed that? I think
it was Ahsoka.
Yeah, she confirmed that when she had that one kind of no-talking conversation.
Mind meld thing that was going on, yep.
So he did have some training, and that explains a lot of what we see Grogu being able to do. It doesn't explain some things, which we are going to eventually talk about in here too. So let's kind of just segue into that. Let's talk about maybe his training leading up until the movie. And, he had a brief, so we know he got training at the temple. Mm-hmm. We don't know for how long. We don't know who he trained with.
Right.
When he was rescued by 4 Jedi. There were 4 Jedi that were protecting him. Mm-hmm. So I think that says a lot in itself, right? The fact that they've got 4 people, and I'm making an assumption here that they've assigned these 4 people. In my head, they assigned these 4 people. They were his guardians. It could be because, one, he was just such a rare species, right? First and foremost, there aren't a lot of these anywhere else, right? 2, maybe they did know that he had the potential to be very powerful, and they did not want him to fall into the hands of like the Emperor or anybody else that could either take his DNA or train him to be something evil later down the road. And so I think it makes sense they would stick 4 Jedi on him or with him to protect him. Eventually, Kelleron Beck rescues him after those 4 Jedi are killed. He takes them off world, and then they disappear, and we have a period of spans where I think Ahsoka says everything's dark, or it's like, I can't remember the wording that she used there, but says that there's a dark period there. So, and I don't know if that necessarily means that, like, it was not necessarily like a dark side or a dark time for in his life. It's just, it's blank, and we don't know why that's blank. That's part of the mystery. Don't even know that we'll ever get that resolved. Maybe we'll at some point.
I hope we do.
I hope we do too.
I have questions like, how did he end up where he was at when we first saw him?
Exactly, because he shows up at the Nikto camp, right? Where they've got him as a prisoner, and that's why the bounty was out there. And IG-11 and Mando were both going after him, and a number of bounty. He had a bounty out there for him, right? So we don't know that transition period or that period of time, what exactly happened there. How did he fall into the wrong hands like that and become a bounty? Which, again, would love to know, but maybe someday we will. On top of that, we get Luke's training, and Luke's training was really kind of, I wouldn't say basic, but it was. They had a moment there where you remember the scene where they're lifting all the frogs in the air. Yep. Like Grogu lifts one of the frogs, right, demonstrating telekinesis there. And while that's all going on, Luke's got his eyes closed. Grogu has his eyes closed. Luke is kind of smiling. He's probably kind of feeling the joy or just the youngness of the infantileness of Grogu. Maybe that, clean spirit kind of thing that he's got going on there. But he tells Grogu, I'm going to teach you to protect yourself, right? That was what Luke's intent was, at least to start off with. And through that process, he came up with helping him kind of jumping around. He had the what was it, training droid? Yeah, to use that to kind of, it was attacking him. He had a moment in there where he was kind of doing lightsaber demonstration. I don't think he was necessarily training him. I think for me, that was more of like, hey, here's a lightsaber. We use it to defend ourselves. I mean, there might have been like a high level lesson there, But then I think he just went into some kind of a kata, right? A
Right.
practice just to kind of show
Right.
Grogu what it looks like, and not, hey, this is how you hold it. This is a stance. I don't think he got into any of that. So I think it's safe to say that he's not trained at all with a lightsaber, even though he was offered one at the very end there. And then it was more about just kind of learning to jump around and dodge, because, you know, if you think about, you know, Yoda, and when he fights Count Dooku at the end of Attack of the Clones, you know, we saw him in just like doing the flips and jumping around. I mean, that's a very evasive kind of technique. Maybe it's something that's very special to them. They're already small as it is, but then you couple that with somebody who's very force sensitive, who can see things before they happen, who can use the force to help and aid him in his agility. Yeah, I mean, that just seems like a natural kind of defense for them. So, but I mean, overall, it was a short period of time. I think it was effective because at that point, again, at least from a writing standpoint, now Grogu was able to get around. Like, he wasn't like Mando having to pick him up or having to stick him in the stroller if he needed to. If he needed to get away, he could just jump up. And we go back to the movie. Yeah, we saw all kinds of examples where he's just jumping everywhere onto things and landing here and there or whatever. But I think it makes total sense there.
I mean, the truth of the matter, if he didn't have that training, a lot of the cool scenes that we saw in the movie itself wouldn't have happened. I mean, how many times did he just jump out from wherever on Mando's back? You know what I mean?
Right.
Jumping
on the
into
ATRT at the very beginning too.
Exactly. The ATRT, jumping into the stroller, as you called it, you know, on Shikari, you know, when they, you know, went underneath the platform where they had like the train platform and stuff.
Yeah.
If he didn't have all those skills, he wouldn't be able to do that. Go back to the end of Mandalorian season 3, when he got trapped into that room with the Praetorian guards, and he was just, you know, flipping around on the light fixtures, you know, keeping away from them. I mean, if he didn't have that training, he wouldn't have survived. So I think, it goes back to like we know based off like literature from the prequel era, and then, you know, some of the stuff that we've saw in Clone Wars and in the actual episode movies themselves, the actual, you know, 1, 2, and 3, that the training at the temple at the time of the peak of the Jedi, you know, it was very structured. You know, it was very like, we're gonna start here, now get you to here, and it was very structured moving forward. But once the Jedi Order was essentially gone, we see how training is in, you know, obviously Empire Strikes Back, and then we see, you know, the Book of Boba Fett, where Luke is training Grogu, and then we see Ahsoka training Sabine. It's very unstructured. It's very like, here's what we're dealing with, and here I'm going to train you on how to deal with that
it's
situation.
More situational.
It's
training.
situational, exactly.
Yeah.
And this goes back to
this is your Boken stuff.
The Boken Jedi that Baylan Skoll. I'm telling you, he has done more, Baylan Skoll, the character, to explain how Jedi are trained after the fall of the Order than anyone has ever done in any book or anything like that, just by saying the term Boken Jedi. But yeah, it's all situational from this point on. And you know what? Luke actually hit the nail on the head in training Grogu to, again, protect himself, because if he didn't have those skills, he wouldn't have survived.
Yeah. No, 100%. Like, I definitely agree. That was, I mean, that line, Luke even says, "I will teach you to protect yourself." That was intentional. Not only, I mean, I don't think the movie was in sights at the time, but I think they realized that they've got to figure out a way for Mando to not have to constantly be guarding the child or protecting the child, and get him to kind of be able to do this stuff on his own.
Right. So, exactly.
As far as the movie training goes, though, or at least not the movie training, but as far as his demonstration of the Force in the movie, were you surprised that he didn't use the Force as much? Do you feel like it was a good balance between the Mandalorian type aspects of his character versus the Force aspects of his character? Would you have liked to see one or more of the other?
So I thought what I saw from the growth of his Force powers is that he's trying to control a little bit more. Where I first saw that is when he hopped out and he stopped the mouse droid. I think he was trying to just like incapacitate it, you know, just to like essentially turn it off. But, you know, he didn't have that level of skill to control it. So he just took it all apart, right?
Yeah,
That's what happened.
he looked more surprised. He looked as
Exactly.
surprised as we were, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to be a little bit more specific with how he uses his powers. But was I, did I wish that he used his powers more? No, I think he used them when he needed to, and that's what, as a Jedi, that's what you're supposed to do. You use the Force when you need it, right? You don't just go around, hey, give me my fork here. I'm just going to pull it with the Force. Every time I see something like whenever I see Grogu use the Force to pull food toward him. Now, keep in mind, that's it kind of contradicts what I just said, but he is a baby,
kid.
right? He's a kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he is a kid, right?
Right.
But when we go back to episode 2 and that table scene where Anakin and Padme are feeding each other and he's pushing the apple piece toward Padme and he goes, yeah, Obi-Wan would be very grumpy if I did this, because you're not supposed to use the Force for that. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to use the Force when you need it.
Yeah.
And I think he's coming to his own and realizing that, but he's still a kid. So he's still going to use it here and there to try to have some fun stuff happen or get some yummies so that he could snack on.
Yeah. I mean, if I was a kid and I had telekinesis,
yeah,
I guarantee
exactly.
you, I would be using that for like nefarious reasons. And by nefarious, I mean like getting snacks and cookies and whatever else, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's just like a kid behavior more than anything else. So I can totally see that.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know that I was surprised. I will say this too. I want to kind of backpedal on one thing, or maybe clarify one thing. Luke's training was first and foremost about defending himself. But the other thing was they had to get rid of the baby passing out thing, right? And so at least in my opinion, I felt like Luke was able to kind of help him get control of that, make use of the Force without exhausting himself, because even just the smallest things would exhaust him from time to time, right?
Right.
And it was, I think, up until, and we're talking, that was in Book of Boba Fett. So we had already had essentially 2 seasons of him passing out every time he used the Force. And so that wasn't probably sustainable, not only for the character, but from a story perspective.
Right.
He wanted to figure out a way to get past all that so he can grow. Yeah. Luke would be the right person, right? I mean, I think Ahsoka could have done it, but she realizes, there's an attachment to Din, and that's why she chooses not to train him, and she passes him over to Luke. But definitely either one of them probably could have helped him get past that. So at this point too, that really freed up a lot of different things. We don't see any hint of that in the movie now, where he's passing out because he uses the Force, and I think that's a absolutely good thing.
Yeah, and that shows growth. That shows that he is becoming better at controlling his power and not letting it overwhelm him to the point where he feels like he has to pass out and take a nap.
Right. Yep. But other examples, we saw him use that. That's, to me, it was always called like Force Crush in Legends. Mm-hmm. And I remember more recently, I don't remember what book I was reading, or there was something more canonically that was talking about this. And now it's Force Stasis, which means you're using the Force to kind of hold things together and keep them suspended. When you get into the crushing of things, it's a little bit more of kind of like I would say it's not really a dark side power. It's a darker side of the Force, especially if you're using it on things that are alive. Right. Luke went ballistic on Force crushing crap when he was, came aboard Moff Gideon's ship when he was attacking the, what were they called now? Stinking droids.
Dark Troopers.
The Dark Troopers, yeah. Mm-hmm. So that makes absolute sense. I don't think he would have done that. Now, Luke is somebody who also used Force choke. We did see Grogu use Force choke during when Mando was wrestling. Remember, he was arm wrestling Cara Dune, and suddenly he starts Force choking her, right? And we'll get into that in a second, because I want to talk about like whether or not that was something that was just instinctive, reactive, was it trained, whatever else, or why that came about. But anyways, go back to what I was saying. The Force stasis, Force crushing, is a power that he demonstrated. And you're right. I feel like it was just kind of like an accidental thing. I don't think he was trying to do necessarily all that to it. But when it happened, he was just kind of like, oh, well, exactly. That's what happened.
And it's appropriate because we saw Luke use that power on a Dark Trooper when he, in the finale of Mandalorian season 2, where he made his hand into a fist and crushed that Dark Trooper to almost the size of like a trash can. I mean, he really crushed the heck out of that thing.
Yeah. We also saw him use the animal bond, which is the ability to kind of pacify animals. He used it on, I think it's Kabu or Klebu. I forget now the name of the new dog that
I don't remember the
Embo
name of the
has.
dog.
I think it's Kabu.
Right.
But he used it there to kind of pacify him just briefly when he was confronted one-on-one. We
Mhm.
saw him use that on, I guess the Rancor was the biggest example, no pun intended, at the very end there of Book of Boba Fett. So we know he's got that ability as well. We've seen Kanan's used it, or Ezra's used it. I'm trying to think
Anakin
of
has
it.
used it.
Yes. Yep.
Mhm.
Anakin used it as well, but there's that power exists. Whether he was trained on it, I'm not really sure. We also had him use the telekinesis at the very end with Rada the Hutt. Right,
Rada,
that was kind of the big surprise there at the very end. You thought Rada went down. He used telekinesis to pick him up, lift him, and kind of put him to safety there. Beyond that, I was trying to think: were there any other examples that we saw of him use telekinesis or any of the other force abilities that he had?
I mean, just when he was trying to push Mando into his mud hut and he made it too small and kept hitting his head on the tree.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, that was probably, I guess that would be considered telekinesis as well, but that's right. That's another example. So we only had, if that's right, we only had those 4 examples of him using the force. And so I guess going back to my question is whether we felt like did he use enough of the force, not too much, too little? It probably feels just about right. And I don't know that I would have said that had I not, as part of the research or part of getting refreshed for this show. I went back and watched specifically that episode with Luke because that was something I hadn't seen in a while. It's been a while. I mean, we did a whole show and breakdown of it, but it's been a while since I've actually revisited it. And when I was watching that, there was one line that stood out to me the most, and it's where Luke says that his heart was not in learning the path of the Jedi. And so when he says that, for Grogu, I don't even know that using the Force, even if he wanted to, outside of the cookie thing, right? Outside of using that to bring cookies and treats and all that, I don't even know that he would have used that, or that's his first instinct is to use the Force. It feels like he is leaning more onto his, father's training from Din's training, his use of, common sense and, combat style. Maybe he's got armor, he's got his little weapons and stuff now that he has. It feels like he's leaning into more of that. And that's where he, because of his bond with Din, rather than trusting in the Force and using that for what he needs to. It does feel like it's kind of a last minute thing, or if I really need to use it, then I'll use it.
He uses it when he has to. I think you hit the nail on the head there. He's relying on the training of the Mandalorians. Because that's where that's essentially his now, not just officially, but I'm sure he feels that, they are his people and he belongs with them. So essentially, he's using a lot of the training and it's, and we saw it, when he used the I call it the paintball wrist thing where he, shot that dog in the eye to get him to run away. He suits up in his Mandalorian armor. That's who he is. That a Jedi is completely secondary in his mind. In what I think, it's completely secondary in his mind. In his mind, he's a Mandalorian apprentice. That's who he believes he is. Strong Mustachio brought up another point. He did also in the movie show Force Healing when he healed the scar.
Oh, that's right.
The dragon snake from where he bit him. He healed that. Now he was still poisoned. He wasn't able to heal the poisoning, but he was able to heal the wound.
Yeah. There is in Legends, there was an ability that Jedi could use called detoxify poison. So they literally could pull the poison out. And then in Legends, I think Kenobi and maybe some other Jedi used it to go to drink, to get information from people and start drinking and use that to detoxify themselves so they wouldn't get intoxicated and then really get information from the person that was, drunk. So there was examples of that where they would use that to kind of cleanse their body of it. So good call. Thanks for mentioning that one. So he did use that. I mean, we saw him use Force healing. That was his very first demonstration of the Force. Remember back even that second episode, where after he'd gotten out during episode season 1 or season, wait, hold on, let me think about this now. Season 2, when Mando was hurt and he kept putting his hand up, right, and he was trying to heal him, and then Mando would put him back in his little carriage thing or whatever.
Right.
And then he came back a second time. He used him to heal that. He used to heal Grief Karga. We never healed him, but he healed Grief Karga after they'd been attacked by those, I don't know what they were,
those
birds or
flying things,
pterodactyls or whatever it was.
Yep.
And which is a very powerful ability. And this is where, so I'm going to start blending things together because we're kind of crisscrossing a couple different topics here. But when you talk about like what was trained versus what was naturally learned or what was instinctive, this is something that I do have a question about. Like, I don't know that I've expressed my thoughts and opinions on force healing already. It's a topic that came up when The Rise of Skywalker came out, and we saw Rey use it, and there was a give and take that was explained for it, that part of you is given up in order to heal somebody else. I don't necessarily think that's the case that's happening with Grogu. Why? I don't know. That, they'll have to probably explain that at some point. But typically, the Jedi, historically, Jedi were never trained to be force healers. And I think I mentioned this before because it was a dark path. It was like a slippery slope, if you will. The minute you start realizing that you can use the force to heal other people, then you're starting to play with like immortality and extending life. And that starts crossing over into the dark side of territory, right? And so it's very shunned upon. Now, were there, quote, force healers in Legends? Oh, yeah, there was a ton of force healers everywhere. But they didn't have this, that was never really kind of a thing for them. They didn't really kind of bring it up. So I guess where I'm going with this is Grogu was able to demonstrate this. I don't know that it was trained, at least from canon perspective. I don't think it was trained. So this had to have been something that was either he was trained by someone else, maybe, or it's just an instinctive ability that he has because of his species or the fact that he's just got potential to will something like that happen. I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think that would be a technique that would be trained on day one. I mean, if you go, but if you go back to like ancient martial arts, like a lot of the martial arts that come from China, the mantra is you learn to heal before you learn to hurt. So when you first take your first steps in learning that martial art, you learn how to heal. Then you learn everything else. Could that be something that the Jedi do? I don't know. But just seeing how the Jedi trained, especially back in the temple, how everything was real structured, could that have been how they started their training? Yes, but I don't see any evidence of them doing that. So I tend to lean to the theory that it's just something that he knows instinctively. You know what I mean? That's just what he learned himself.
Yeah. I think that's probably the case for me too. That, and then the other one that comes to mind, I brought this up earlier, was the idea of like force choking. I mean, that could be explained as just purely telekinesis, right? But knowing that you would have to know the anatomy of somebody and to know that you could use telekinesis to like choke them and crush the trachea so they couldn't breathe. I don't know. That just doesn't seem like, day one training or year 50 training of a youngling or a Padawan or, I guess a youngling really. I don't think they're training all that. So that feels like it's instinctive. And how would he have known to kind of go after the throat and choke her that way? Maybe that was something that was, I don't know, done to him, or he saw it happen. There's, a lot of time that passed that we aren't clear about and unsure about, but that's another one that I don't feel like was, again, trained.
Yeah, I would lean on the fact that was not trained. But again, it could be because again, Lucas was very, and I'm not saying he wrote this down or put this in any script that we haven't seen or anything. We know Lucas borrows a lot from Asian mythology and whatnot. And again, a lot of those martial arts that come from Asia, China, Japan, Korea, a lot of them, when you go down the path, when you want to become a master of that martial art, not when you go to like the dojo and train, that I'm talking about, you really want to walk that path. A lot of them, you're taught how to heal before you learn to hurt. So it could be something like that. But again, there's just no evidence to support that. So I have to lean on that. It's just something that he knows how to do.
Yeah. There were other examples. So we've talked about, I guess, the 5 examples during the movie. There were other force powers that Grogu did demonstrate during the television series, seasons 1 through 3. We didn't talk necessarily about force push per se. Maybe no. Force push is really kind of a defensive tactic, right? We see a lot of the more defensive Jedi use this kind of thing. Kit Fisto used it. Qui-Gon used it. I mean, there's tons and tons of examples where the Force push. There was that scene when he went up to Moff Gideon's ship after he'd been captured, and there was those two stormtroopers that were next to him. Do you remember that? And he kind of Force pushed them off to the side, and they hit the wall, and they kind of passed out. And then Moff Gideon walks in. We didn't see him demonstrate that ability per se, but that's definitely one that he's shown before.
Mm-hmm.
There was I'm going to call it a Force shield. They used during the flamethrower scene when that flamethrower came in. He was protecting Din after he'd been really badly wounded,
and he also used it when at the end of season 3, where like the flames came from underneath the platform they were on, and he protected himself, Bo-Katan, and Din Djarin. He used it then too.
Yeah, and that's not a hey, younglings, grab your lightsaber practice sticks. We're going to learn how to do a force bubble. Like, that's just not something that's trained at that age, right? So, again, is that more instinctive, or was that something that was trained? I don't know. I mean, it's just crazy.
It's exactly. We have zero evidence on what they choose to train at what age. Or if they say, okay, this person's at this ability level, we'll train him here. This person this person is at this ability level, we could take it a couple notches, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Based off the talent, midichlorian count, stuff like that. We just don't know. It's never been explained to us.
Yeah. We talked about force healing or the magic hand thing. Hey, baby, use the magic hand thing, as Grief Karga says. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. There was a moment in one of the episodes when the droid, Zero, was it Zero? That the droid that became the head that was inside the Razor Crest. It was it was in the prison breakout scene or episode where they hired Mando to go infiltrate a New Republic floating prison. You remember this? And they had that one bug-eyed droid named Zero. And there was a moment in there where Zero finds out that there's a big bounty out for Grogu. And so he starts stalking Grogu in that ship. And there's a moment there where Mando's off fighting the Devoranian, the guy with the horns, And then once he battles him and he gets past all that, he ends up showing up at the last minute because that droid Zero is looking for Grogu, and Grogu's hiding. He hits a button, the door opens up, and Grogu's right there. And then he pulls his blaster out and he aims it at Grogu. And then Grogu puts his hand up like to use the Force. And before he does anything, or maybe he does do something, Mando comes to behind and shoots that droid and kills it. And then later on, it becomes the head that's used to talk to the frog lady. Do you remember all this?
Oh, yeah.
That guy. Okay. Anyways, so when Grogu puts his hand up, he's trying to use the Force. He's about to use the Force, but nothing ever happens. And it was never explained as to what exactly he was doing. But in my head, I thought, okay, maybe he's trying to Force choke. And because he doesn't know the anatomy, he's thinking, oh, I can Force choke this droid in the throat. And he's trying to, zone in on something there that doesn't exist because it's a droid. And maybe that was a demonstration. But that was the only other thing I could think that he's done outside. And there are all kinds of other variants of kind of what we talked about. But that seems to be kind of the limit. It's just a mixture of things that you would expect him to be able to do as a youngling, maybe even a Padawan, and then some really astounding things that you would not expect him to do without any formal training. And so I think we can chalk all that up to instinctive abilities rather than, formal training. Agree?
Yeah, no, I agree. Because again, based off what we've seen and what has been given to us canon wise, we just don't know, but if we try to, and I know it's Star Wars, it's fantasy and all that stuff, but as humans, we try to apply like our experience and what we've seen and what we've been through. And that level of skill is not something you learn as a child. So at least how I'm putting on it. Now, again, it's Grogu, it's Yoda species. They're special. I understand. But I think because of that as well, he may be predisposed to some skills that someone else has to be trained, but he may already have the instinct to perform those skills.
Yeah.
That's where I'm leaning.
There's two examples here. Let's see. One at versus CPU says, so when they fly into Nal Hutta, they get hassled by two ships, and Grogu does a little wave with his hand in the direction to let them go through right away. I don't know if anyone noticed this. That could have been, who's to say? That's maybe, a use of ability of Force.
Well, keep in mind, there were droids flying those things.
True. Yeah, so I don't know if he would have been able to influence the
Yeah.
droids. So then the other one that we were talking about during the trailers and all that was just this crazy stroller that goes like 85 miles an hour. Like, was that designed that way? And what sick corporation created it? Or was that Grogu using the Force to help accelerate it? I mean, we don't have a explanation as to why, but it's just hard to believe. Maybe not in Star Wars, because I mean, you got Mandalorians teaching kids how to do things with grenades and weapons at like age 5 and 6. You got the Jedi training kids to use the Force at a young age. So
that was a random Rhodian baby and their mother. I don't think they would have a super powered floating stroller.
So force ability from Grogu then. Why? I mean,
or maybe it was just when she went to the outpost, that was the only one they had, and it was super powered, right, and that's what she bought. I don't know. It could have been Grogu, but I mean, we saw the exhaust, we saw the lights and everything. I would, if I were to watch that without any discussion, I would think that the thing was built that way. Right, but then I have other concerns. It's like, what kind of parent would put their kid in that thing? You know what I mean? But yeah,
Rhodians, they don't care about they don't love their children. It's the only conclusion.
Then there we go. That's our exit. They need a fast moving, just when they want to get rid of them, and they'll just put them in there, close the hatch, and send them out.
It's like, it's probably how they cull the herd, right? They just put them in the fast strollers, and if the baby survives and gets past all that, and they can walk on their own, then they have a right to be here. Otherwise, you're out, kid. Sorry, don't need you. It's just one more mouth to feed. Travis Mitchell says, I imagine a lot of what Grogu learned was from his time in Luke with the Book of Boba Fett, where he told him about Yoda and have taught to navigate similar environment to that of the movie. Yeah, that's what we talked about. There was definitely some things that he learned from Luke Skywalker, but I think there was probably a limit to what Luke could train him on, just because he knew that there was a strong attachment that existed there, and he wanted Grogu to make that choice for himself before he tried to pursue any path of, detaching him from that attachment, if you will. So, okay. So let's maybe just quickly just talk about the future. And the future is really, just largely unknown. And I know that sounds really obvious and stupid, but, what we were talking about maybe in the last episode, it came up as a question is, do we think that Grogu will ever revisit training? He's broken away from Luke. Luke has clearly said, look, his heart's not in it. He wants to be a Mandalorian. I'm not going to pursue or push him into the Jedi thing. He even offered him Yoda's lightsaber, and he, turned it down. So it feels like he's strongly, at least right now, at this very young age, very impressionable age, very attached and bonded to Din. Do you think at some point, maybe after Din has passed, are there could be a lot of reasons. I mean, this guy's going to live a very long time, knock on wood, hopefully. There are a lot of reasons that could push him to go back to training, but do you think it's something we'll ever see him revisit in Star Wars?
So here's what I think. So I think by the time he gets to the point where he becomes maybe a young or an older child, as he ages, I still believe that because of how influential Din Djarin is to him, and how he sees him as essentially his father, and how he was brought up and essentially officially indoctrinated into the Mandalorian sect that Din was a part of. I do believe that he follows the creed like Din Djarin does, and I do believe that initially that's the path he's going to want to walk, is the path of the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
That being said, and I'm going to just throw out some theories, but first I'll talk about how training to be a full-fledged Mandalorian warrior can also help him become more in tune with the Force. We do know that the training to do both, they're both very structured, but they call you to bring out the best in yourself, right? To believe in yourself, to knowing, like, when they were training on the planet, and Grogu was going against that other Mandalorian kid, and he's like, believe in yourself, you can do this. That's also a lot of what the Jedi teach. And I do believe that as he becomes and he's trained more in the ways of the Mandalorian, that will help him in his tie to the Force. And, yeah, it might not be your standard training that you would get from a Jedi master. But again, the training that Jedi are getting in this time frame, it's not standard to begin with. So I think that as he becomes more Mandalorian, he'll become more in tune with the Force, and we'll start to see other Force abilities manifest from that. That's my theory.
Yeah.
That's to start with. Now, I as I said in other shows that we've where we've discussed this movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu, I do believe we saw the beginning of the end of Din Djarin's story in the Star Wars galaxy. I do believe that. I do believe within the next couple of years, we're going to see his story end. I'm not saying he's going to die. I have to preface this because I know everyone loves Din. I love Din. I'm not saying he's going to die. Could he? Yes. I'm saying that his story will end. And then a lot of people's theories, my theory as well, we're going to see him team with Rada. Okay.
Yeah.
Could that duo show up in Simon Kinberg's Star Wars trilogy? And he, okay, I think I've taken everything I can from the Mandalorian. Now I want to come back and be, maybe, pick up Jedi training from who is left? Rey? Yeah. That's my theory.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're gonna see him go full Mandalorian. Din Djarin is done. It's him and Rada. Something's going down in the galaxy, and he wants to take his Jedi training to the next level.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm of two minds when it comes to this topic. Not really. I am and I am not. Okay, so here's where I'm at. I think let me back up. So we've now got, at least in canon, 3 known Jedi three known Force sensitives / Mandalorians. Okay. We've got Tar Vizsla, who was the original one, wielder of the Darksaber, right? Pulled all the Mandalorians together and they fought the Jedi. And by the way, and we've mentioned this before on the show, if you're not familiar with Legends and just the historical wars that have been fought between Jedi and the Mandalorians, I mean, you're talking thousands and thousands of years of fighting, right? On top of the Mandalorians fighting internally, you had the Jedi Sith War, you had the Jedi and Mandalorian wars that were going on there for a while, right? So, I mean, the reason why the Mandalorians are as potent as they are, and the reason why they fight the way they do, and the reason why they have all of the different weapons they do, is because they were going up against Jedi and Force users, right? So that, I mean, they were almost constructed to fight one another. But now you've got 3 basically, at least in canon, that have existed. You've got Tar Vizsla, you have Sabine Wren, who is a Mandalorian, and now is Force sensitive, and now you've got Grogu. So this is a very unlikely thing to ever have happened, and yet we've got 2 within the last, 15, 20 years or whatever in this time frame. That said, it's a very powerful thing if you think about it, right? You've got somebody who has all the weaponry, all the tactics, the skills of a Mandalorian, and on top of that, they potentially have a lot of Force abilities that they can use as well. It's like the best of both worlds, if you ask me. You think about like all the scenarios that Kenobi or Anakin or any of the great Jedi have ever been in, where they couldn't escape, where they couldn't get away. Had they had some of the weaponry, the gadgets and stuff that the Mandalorians, that could have turned the tide. That could have helped them get away or succeed in whatever situation they were in. So it's a very potent thing to have. I think for Grogu, I would like to see him go down the path of the Mandalorian for a while. I think that he'll outgrow that at some point, no pun intended, because like you said, when Din passes, unless there's a reason for him to kind of be around and be a prominent figure with the Mandalorians, I don't know that he's going to have a big part to play in the galaxy. You know, what does he do? He's just going to be doing kind of what his dad's doing, which is going around doing bounties and that kind of thing.
And one theory, and this may have been explained in books or in novels, I should say, but if we look at the sequel trilogy, the Mandalorians have no presence there. You know what I'm saying? So maybe something happened to him again. I mean, but I do think that Grogu and whomever he's with at the time, it could be Rada, he could be by himself, it could be somebody else. I think that he's still around, but what happened to the Mandalorians? Because we got zero mention of them in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, and I think it's one of two things, or some variations thereof. They're either fighting again, which would be characteristic of them, right? How many times have they tried to come together, couldn't get their crap together, and then they're fighting, and they do this internal fight that lasts hundreds of years, right? Right. So that could be one explanation as to why they're not part of anything that's happening in the sequel trilogy. The other one is they could be rebuilding, and they could be taking more of an isolationist type approach. Like, okay, look, we finally got our crap together. We don't care what everybody else is doing, but we're going to take care of our house first, get everything rebuilt. I mean, you think about Mandalore, right? That's a planet of glass now because of what the Empire did to it. There's a lot of rebuilding that has to happen. That's not going to happen in the short span of like 50 years or whatever period of time that we're talking about from the Empire up until the rise of Skywalker, even 75, 100 years. It's going to be a lot longer than that. So they could just be taking more of an isolationism type approach and rebuilding and saying, look, you guys go fight whatever you want to do, but we're going to get our crap together before we go reach out and make contact with everybody else again. That's probably likely the case, or some variation thereof. But where I was going with Grogu is, you know, unless he's a part of all that, you know, maybe he's on Mandalore and maybe he is part of that isolationism. That's why we don't see him show up, you know, in The Rise of Skywalker. Nobody mentions him because he's doing with stuff there on Mandalore or Concordia or wherever it is. And he's not really playing a larger part in the galaxy at large. I do like, so at some point, I think he will go back to Force training. The question is of when and why. Like, it seems like something has to really be that catalyst for him to suddenly go, okay, I've lived this, you know, long life now of being in a Mandalore, and now I need to go back and really tap into my Jedi training. Because if you think about all the Force powers that we just discussed, he's got, I mean, if he becomes a really good Mandalorian, just having the ability to Force heal, Force push, Force crush, Force bubble, the telekinesis,
Force sleep. You know, jumping around.
Right. Yeah. Force leap. I mean, I don't even know that he really needs much more training. I mean, is there a lot more things that he could do? Absolutely. I mean, for sure. But I don't even know that outside of him, maybe he can't control it. Maybe that's what it comes down to is look, I can do these things, but it's only like when I really have to. I can't really just do it on command, you know? And maybe that's where that training, it's more of a finesse type thing, getting more specific, more tactile with it. That's probably where maybe the Force training comes and where he realizes, look, I'm going to need that. Who trains him in all that really depends on where in the timeline it is. I'd love for it to be somebody like Rey. I don't know that feels like it's a little too soon. If it were me, I think I like the idea of fast forwarding 200-300 years into the future past the Rise of Skywalker, maybe, and saying, look, now Grogu is in his 20s and his 30s or whatever it is, and that's where he's going to, you know, take training. Who the Jedi trainer is at that point, it could be a number of people, especially if Rey's able to rebuild the Jedi Temple and get the Jedi Order going, whatever that looks like. It could be a number. So really what it does is it just opens, it's kind of a blank canvas for whoever wants to tell that story, whether it's Kinberg or someone else. There's a lot of, open territory there just to kind of explore that and really get crazy. And if you want to bring Grogu into it, that's fine too. I don't know what Grogu does, or not Grogu, sorry. Rhoda. I don't know what you do with Rhoda the Hutt. I don't know if he's, you know, is he more of a mercenary? You know, Zeb says, hey, I've got an outfit that's going to fit you. That could have been a chef's outfit. I don't know. We don't know what he does, right? Maybe he's just cooking food. But what I'm saying is, like, if you want to bring him in there, I love the idea. I just don't know what that duo looks like, because now you've got a slug who can't get around as quickly as somebody else, right? So if you have, I mean, it's like the inverse of what we got right now with Grogu and the baby having to tug him around. Now he's got this, you know, I don't know, 1,200-pound slug that he's got to put on a floating platform to get around.
Well, I'll give this slug something, is that he can fight. I mean, unlike other Hutts that we've seen who just kind of sit around and get fat and happy, he can actually fight. So he has that going for him. But yeah, he will be at a disadvantage in most scenarios because of his size. But
Yeah.
I'm sure. Again, I don't. I want to give the benefit of the doubt to Favreau and Filoni. They put these points in this film for a reason.
Mhm.
And I think that I do believe in my heart of hearts that ultimately the story is going to lead us to to Grogu and Rada. Um, Only because, when Rada came out, he was essentially the best thing of that Clone Wars movie, that horrible Clone Wars movie. He was the best thing that came out of that. And then
Well,
obviously,
hold on. Ahsoka was the best thing that came out of that. But
okay.
let's be
Sorry.
fair. Yeah, no, I know. I know what
Ahsoka
you're
was the
saying, though.
best thing to come out of
Outside of
that.
Ahsoka, yes.
Then following Ahsoka was Rada, aka Stinky.
Stinky.
But and obviously everyone is in love with Grogu and has been since we saw him back in 2019. Putting those two together just makes sense from a marketing perspective, but I think from a storyline perspective, they're gonna essentially be the duo. Someone was talking about in the chat about having to be like a buddy cop thing. I don't know if it's gonna go that far, if they're gonna be like Starsky and Hutch, but and I think
Wow.
I just aged
You just
myself
dated
really
yourself.
bad. Yeah. Okay, a Crockett and Tubbs.
Well, okay.
That's just as bad.
Just as bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Poncherelli and
Smokey and Craig. There we go. Smokey and Craig. That's still old.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if they're going to have that buddy cop aspect, but I think they're going to be partners in something. So I think that's what we're going to get. And I think, like you said, and we talked about this as well. I think that once Din is out of the picture, whether he's retired or done or dead, I think that's when he decides to take that next step. So I've gone as far as I can as a Mandalorian. Let me go back to my Jedi roots. And you know what? Because of his species and because of how slow he ages, he does have the time. I don't think the too old. Actually, the whole thing of that, hey, you're too old. Like I think you can throw that out the window during the sequel time frame. I don't think that matters anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it does either. Like it's a whole nother discussion. But like,
right.
What would the new order look like for Rey? There's a lot of reasons why things would be very different. And well, okay, again, so I'm reading Legacy right now, which is the book that's coming out later this month. And I almost said something that spoiled. I can't say anything about the book right now, but I almost said something. But there's a part of it that book does kind of talk about some of that. That's all I'll say. I can't say any more of that. But yeah, you're right. Like things are going to be different. And I think that idea of attachment, the idea that someone's too old, some of these things are kind of draconic. And, there have been examples that both in Legends and canon where it's been proven that you can have that stuff, I guess in moderation, if you will. One thing, it just kind of we can kind of end on this one. Travis said one of my favorite moments in the movie is when Din is watching Grogu and Rhoda play in the water as the sun sets. One way to look at that is he knows that he'll be there for a long time after he's gone, and that's exactly why that scene's in there, and it's exactly why in two other circumstances or two other occurrences in that movie we hear somebody tell Mandalorian specifically, "Hey, he's going to outlive you," right?
Yep.
And in the trailer, one of the trailers, what was the line that Mando says that didn't make it into the movie? Do you remember what was the name of that?
It was just like, yeah, he's going to outlive me by centuries.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be around to protect him.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've heard it, we've seen it. We've heard it twice. We've seen an example of that in that scene. And so I think, it's Dave Filoni. I think Mustachio had said this as well. It's kind of a Dave Filoni creation. So I think it's safe to say that is kind of where that is going to go, whether you like it or not, or what it looks like. Who knows what that's going to be? But it feels like that is going to be the case. But, Grogu has the potential to live 700-800 years. And so there's a lot of runway there for him to decide that, hey, I want to go back to Jedi training. What that looks like, I think we've already talked about. Who's going to train him really depends on where we are in the timeline when he finally makes that decision. I just feel that it is going to have to be something that is there's got to be some circumstance that pulls him back in outside of, look, I just want to hone my skills better. It feels like there's going to be a call to action if you want to follow the hero's journey where he suddenly revisits that and goes on the whole course to suddenly become, more in tune and trained as a Jedi, proper. But so yeah, I think that's the last part of I guess the questions and discussion around this. Why don't we do this? Why don't we, because I know we're running short on time here, why don't we get into our poster questions? So if you're watching this for the first time, what we've been doing is giving away a Mandalorian Grogu poster, which again, hold on. I always forget to grab this thing before we start. We have these posters here that we're giving away. These are the official posters. You've got the IMAX on one side, and then you've got the special preview showing that was done for the 30 minutes. We're giving these guys away. I think we've given away 3 posters, and I think One Up versus CPU got his already. That's right. Chris has it hanging behind him as well. But
right in front of my Longhorn Grogu.
I saw you post that today. I have to ask you later what that, how that came to be.
About that later.
Did you spray paint it? That's all I want to know.
I didn't create it. Someone in the area offered to give it to me, so I like, yeah, I'll take it. I love the horns, and I love Star Wars, so it's a perfect mashup.
2 tastes that taste great together. Okay. That's dating yourself.
That's dating yourself right there too.
Okay. So we're going to give posters away. If you want to be entered in for the next poster, so on the public shows, which we do on Sunday nights, all you got to do is send us the questions. We have 6 questions tonight that we're going to answer. And then we've already picked the winner at the very beginning. So Chris and I both know who that is, and we'll announce that at the very end. Okay. So, first question, I forgot to load these up. I'll just ask it here, and Chris, maybe you answer it, and I'll kind of continue to do this. But the first question is Colonel Ward working for Thrawn? This is from Alex, our Patreon member. He's in the chat as well. I felt she was going to double cross Mando at the end. She still can. Did you get that sense? Because I will say this, I kind of got that sense at one point during my first viewing, but it went away quickly. But what do you think about that?
So I never got that sense.
Yeah.
I got that. The sense that I got was that maybe she knew there was more to the job that she let Mando know. That maybe she knew that, hey, he's walking into a double cross, but if anyone can get out of it, it would be the Mandalorian. That's the only thing that I got. But they've given us this backstory of her working with, Leia and Holdo and the time of the rebellion. I would think it would take a lot to corrupt somebody like that. So no, I don't necessarily, I never got the feeling that she was working for the other side. I did get the feeling that she wasn't telling Mando everything about the job though.
Yep. That was my read. Like when the first time I saw that, I guess during the first viewing, it's just the way she was talking about it. She it didn't seem like she was being truthful, but that could have easily been just, hey, I wasn't being completely honest or giving you all the details, or maybe talking about all the risks that are involved. That's my take on it as well. Like it just feels like she was, not necessarily hiding that, but you get what I'm saying.
Another thing too is I also got the feeling that she was kind of goading him, like saying, hey, look, I got you this nice Razor Crest as a payment for your current job, and what's happening, and I don't have anything for you if you don't take this job, like kind of goading him to take it. And ultimately he did, right? Yeah. But those are the feelings I got. I don't think she's a traitor.
No, I don't either. Yeah. Especially now after having seen the movie a few times and knowing what we know about the character, I think it's safe to say that, I don't know that we'll see her around. I mean, Sigourney Weaver's getting pretty old too. I have to say that. God bless her. I hope she sticks around for much longer, but we'll have to see what kind of role she has to play in Star Wars going forward. All right, cool. Thank you, Alex, for that question. Next question is, you can read this one from Tini, one of our Patreon members.
Yeah. How much longer can they slow drip Grogu's age development before it gets stale? I say as long as the merch sells, they're gonna drag this as long as it can go. We don't have a scientific way to say, his species years equals our years, our humans years. So I think they're gonna, as long as people find him adorable and as long as he sells merch, I think they're gonna stretch this out as far as they can. Am I to the point where I think it's getting stale? Not yet. But if we get 2 more seasons of this or another movie of this, maybe. I like the cute little goo goo gaga Grogu who surprises us with his actions and whatnot. I still like it. I still can have some more of it, but I know that I'll eventually hit a limit and I'll be like, okay, let's hear a word. Let's hear something in basic. Let's see him really go out and take out like a crew of bad guys all on his own with his own skill. That day is going to come, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, I think the question is more around like, when do we suspect that we will all have Grogu fatigue? I guess maybe, right? Or baby fatigue. Maybe that's the thing that we're looking for here. I don't know. Like, I'm pretty tolerant. Like, it's going to be a while for me personally. I can see where some people may be thinking, okay, this is getting a little bit long in the tooth, or, we played this enough already. We've had 3 seasons of it. Now we've had a movie. Potentially we're going to have another season and maybe more movies. And in all that time that happens, he's not going to mature at all, really, right? I mean, even if it's 2-3 years, 10 years down the road, in the lifespan of someone who could live potentially 800 years, that's a blip, right? So, it's going to have to be, let's just say this, until they fast forward like 200 years, I don't know that things are really going to change much in terms of who he is as a character, with the baby gooey and eye and all that stuff. I think that's just going to be the case. So, it's really up to Disney as far as how long they want to play in that space. This might have been a kind of barometer too for them to determine whether or not it's time to make the jump. How aggressive did they want to make with the jump? We got the numbers in as of this recording, and it's not. There was a significant drop. When we were talking about this, is like how much is that drop going to be from week 1 to week 2 sales or week 3 sales, and it's really plummeted at this point. So it's probably going to be making its way out of the theaters here soon. Was it successful in terms of revenue? Yes. Do you count marketing? No. Sorry, folks, it's not how it works. It's a totally different budget kind of thing. I won't get into all that now, but I think it was successful from that standpoint. But it wasn't like I don't know that it was a movie where they said, holy crap, we got to fast track the Grogu and Road of the Hutt movie or Time Space and get that on the charts for the next 3-10 years. I don't know if we're going to get that. So I guess that's my way of saying it looks like it's going to be here for a long time. And personally, I'm not really bothered by it. I think I'm okay with it still.
Yeah, I think I'll be tolerant of it as well. I mean, but he will have to mature a little in the near future. But if they still keep him overall the way he is, I'll be fine. I think I'll be all right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Teeny. Next question is from Steve, one of our Patreon members again. It says, how many Hutts were killed in the Anthill Palace by the New Republic? Surely the Hutts are a vengeful species. Might that be a direction for another Mandalorian and Grogu movie? So that was just the twins, right? There are still other Hutts that live on Now Hut, and Now Hut is like filled. That is like their home world. So there's Hutts everywhere. Now, are they all as big as the twins or Jabba the Hutt? No, they've got different things that they do. Different, like some are cartel members, some are running spice, some are doing other nefarious things. They're known for being a bad species doing bad things. So, I think the question might be for not necessarily Steve's question, but the question is going to be now that the twins are gone and Road of the Hutt is no longer, heir to the throne on Tatooine. It's like, who steps up? Like, it feels like that vacuum is there now, and some of these Hutts are going to step up. And so it introduces more characters for us to contend with and potentially have in future episodes that, we have never been made aware of. But there were a lot of Hutts in there, and a lot of them did die. So, but it's not the end of the species by any means. So whether that's a story for the Mandalorian and Grogu, I don't know. I don't know that they'll revisit that. I think they've probably done enough.
Yeah, and as far as the vengeful aspect of the question, I think that like Albert said, now there's a power vacuum, and now other Hutts outside of the lineage of Jabba and the twins can take power. So I don't know if we'll get like a vengeful story bit out of this, because I see the other Hutt clans clamoring to take over the twin spot, and not necessarily being vengeful, but not even worried about the New Republic and what they did to the twins. They see that vacuum. They want to take that number 1 spot, and that's going to be their priority. I don't think they're going to look to take revenge against the New Republic. I think they're looking to take the twins' seat.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Cool. Thank you, Steve. All right. Next one is from, you got this one, Lucid Truth.
And what was the biggest surprise for you in The Mandalorian and Grogu? I guess I would say the biggest surprise for me was how they matured, and I'm not talking about by age, how they matured Grogu. We knew that there was going to be a point just based off the trailers where the adventure was going to take Grogu one way and the Mandalorian another way. I didn't know it was going to be to the point where the survival of both of them was going to be on Grogu's shoulders. I thought that was a surprise for me. So yeah, that was the biggest surprise. The other surprise was uh, I had a theory, and it turned out my theory is still a theory. It's not confirmed by any means, but I had a theory that again we were going to start to see the beginning of the end of Mandalorian's story, and I think we got that. And I was just throwing it out there as something that I wanted, and to see it actually begin, in my eyes anyway,
Right.
that was a surprise as well.
Yeah. I think there was a couple there were a lot of people talking about the Embo versus Mando fight and how Embo was able to take him down or capture him. I wasn't honestly surprised by that. I think we even called that and said that that would likely happen. And if anybody could do it, it's Embo. We broke it down as to how and why on one of the previous episodes. I think my part is more not necessarily in the storyline. I think from a story perspective, I think it's definitely Rod of the Hutt joining the Republic. Although we predicted that too. I don't remember when we did the breakdown, the final hype show, I said there have been other Hutts who have joined the Republic in the past. So it's not something that's brand new. It is for anybody that's not followed Legends, but we've had plenty of Hutts that have been helpful and were part of the Republic. And here's another example of it. So that came to happen. I think that was surprising for a lot of people. But I think that was supposed to be a surprise that he would suddenly decide to join the Republic. And, that kind of opens your mind where things go. I think the biggest surprise for me was more creativity from Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, in allotting as much time as they did for Grogu to have that whole sequence. And I know this is a very touchy subject for a lot of people still. My opinion on this is I probably haven't done a good job of explaining how I feel about this, because on one hand, I feel like it is one of the things that brought my score down because it was such a long segment. And it was such a spotlight on Grogu, but at the same time, I loved it. I just didn't know that I wanted to see that much of it in the movie. I thought it was a very bold decision to have that sequence be as long as it was, and really have no dialogue during most of that until he gets to Gator. We don't really have anything. It's just him kind of going through his day in the life of Grogu, right? I loved all that. So I think that was it was surprising that they dedicated that much time to it. For me, it kind of dampened the inertia of the film, and that's where I brought the score down. But on the other hand, as somebody again who likes to know all the details and see all the backstory and all this stuff, I really loved that at the same time. So I think for me, that was probably the biggest surprise that came out of it. So thank you, Lucid Truth, for that one. Adam Jung's got our last question here. When Grogu finally says his first words, what should they be, and who should voice Grogu when they are said? Oh my gosh, why are we asking this question? I didn't look at this one before I went live. So this is going to be like on the spot kind of thing.
So I'll hop on here.
All right, go ahead. I gotta think about it.
I think his first words, I don't think there can be anything else. This is the way.
This is the way.
I think
I was going to say maybe may the force be with you, but that's more of a Jedi thing. So
yeah, I think his first words, I don't think okay, I'm not going to say they have to be, but I think they should be, this is the way. As far as who voices him, no clue, but it has to be a child.
I think it's a child. Yeah. I was thinking it would be cool if they could bring Frank Oz in to do it, but his voice is so old now. They would have to modulate it and synthesize it to make it. I mean, we saw, I don't know if you watched the Avatar movies, and Sigourney Weaver's voice when she's voicing the young girl. It's not there. Like, you can tell it's still older Sigourney Weaver. It doesn't really match. I mean, I love the movies, don't get me wrong, and I love the character. But that stands out. So it would be cool if they could figure out a way to get somebody like Frank Oz to do it. I don't know, Steve Bloom, because he does everything else. Why not? Right. To voice it. But as far as his first words, I guess it depends on how old he is. I don't know if you think about like human infants and toddlers, and when they first speak, their first words are always like mom and dad, and it's always, around that, 1.5 years old before they say anything like that. So I don't know that it'll be like, this is the way, because that seems like it's too many words for a small child, but I don't know.
Well, the only reason why I said that, because there was an episode, and I don't remember in what season, but I think it was the Armor, and it was Bo-Katan, and it was the Mandalorian and Grogu, and they all said this is the way to each other, and it seemed like Grogu was trying to say it, but it just came out in gaga goo goo, right?
Right.
But the way that they positioned that scene, one said it, the other said it, then the Mandalorian said it, and then they focused on Grogu, and he just like gaga goo gooed it out, right? Which I interpreted it as him saying in his baby talk, "This is the way."
Yeah.
That's why I'm leaning on "This is the way."
Okay.
I think he tried to say it previously.
I think it's going to be one of three things. It's either going to be Din, Mando, or Grogu. Like someone asked him, "Hey, what's your name?" He says Grogu, or he's calling him, because he's like his dad, right? So he's not going to say Dada, but he might say Din. That seems like easy, right? Or Mando. Maybe he calls it. That'd be hilarious if he calls him Mando, since that's not really his name, and that's just the name that's used for him by other people.
Yeah, but see, everyone refers to, even the Anzellans call him Mando.
Yeah, right.
So you know what? I'm going to say this: that when that happens, that's going to be the next event that sets off the Star Wars fandom.
Right. Yeah, that burns it down.
Yeah. So it's either going to be extremely positive or it's going to be extremely negative. But either way, it's going to set it up. It's going to set it
some
off.
of the words, I wasn't even paying attention to the chat because I was adding all these in here. Let's see. His first word is shh. Okay, that's from Mustachio. One Up versus CPU says Mando. Alex says Tom Hanks. I don't know what that means. Daddy.
I think he was saying Tom Hanks to voice him.
Oh, Tom Hanks. I was like, why would he say Tom Hanks? That makes no sense.
And the only reason why I said that, because then he brought up Vin Diesel right there.
Oh, yeah. Vin Diesel is voicing him. Right. Mando. Rhodians is his first word. No, that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
All right.
You're reaching there, man.
And you're driving this train right off the rails at this point.
Yes.
So let's end it and let's announce our winner. So thank you guys for submitting your questions. Don't forget, we'll have another poster next Sunday. So between now and next Sunday, you can send your questions via email, on social media. If you're a Patreon member, you can send it via Patreon. If you want to email us, it's hello@cantinacast.com. Send us an email that way. And without further ado, our winner this week is none other than Lucid Truth. So Lucid Truth, congratulations. I will get this poster rolled up and mailed out soon. I don't know that it'll be this week, but it definitely will be out here shortly. So congratulations to you, and thank you to everybody that submitted questions. Please continue to submit those. We have a number of, we still have 3 more posters to give away. So plenty of opportunities to do so. Okay, I think that is it. So maybe Chris, how about some shout outs for everybody that joined us in the live stream tonight?
Yeah, thanks to everyone who joined us in the live stream. Dale E. Skywalker, Music Train 1 Up versus CPU, Modern Rodder, Paisley, Alex, Strong Mustachio, Travis Mitchell, and that David Lozano. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this particular discussion about Grogu.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. And don't forget that if you're a Patreon member, we'll be here Tuesday night. And we're going to be doing a live stream for the breakdown of issue number 3 of Shadow of Maul. That's the comic series. That's the prequel to the series, even though the series is already over. We'll break that episode down, or that issue down. And then next Sunday, we're going to be talking about Rod of the Hutt all over again. So some of what we talked about will come up, but we'll get into kind of, I want to talk about the Clone Wars episode there and some of the time that passes between that and where we find him in The Mandalorian and Grogu. And then certainly talk about all the hype and, his jackness that we've experienced in social media here just recently. So, all right, guys, let's see. Chris, any final thoughts, words before we get out of here?
Nope. Just I am looking forward to see where they decide to take Grogu next.
Yeah. Yeah. The Force is a wonderful thing, but I can't wait to see what Grogu does with it as well. So behalf of myself, Chris, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you all here on the next episode.
still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.